Welcome everyone to Awesome Truth, a wrestling book club. I'm your host, Steve Semino, and with me as always is my co-host, Walt Wank. Hey, Walters.
Hello, Steven. How's it going?
My friend, it is going very well. We are back on Awesome Truth, and we are talking about WrestleMania one more time. This is the last possible moment in which we could realistically talk about WrestleMania, and we are taking advantage of that. We are departing from our usual format where we talk about a book, a doc, a movie, something, and we are just straight up going to talk about, as of this recording, last night's WrestleMania.
Well, I won't say never say never, because they were advertising a behind-the-scenes WrestleMania doc all 2 nights. So,
and I think we both were like, could we just do that? But I believe it premieres the day this episode drops, right?
Right, but we also want to get out an extra week of content, so we're just going to talk about it.
We'll see. TBD on that. You're right. I should not limit us to saying this is the final WrestleMania episode, but WrestleMania is over now. So in that sense, this is one of the last times we'll discuss and certainly the main time which we discuss the actual going-ons of WrestleMania 40, which was last night, again, as this time recording. So if something happens on Raw tonight, as of this recording, sorry, we can't talk about it. We don't know. We don't know what that is. So, apologies. Yeah. And if this Raw is the craziest Raw of all time, this episode is going to seem very dated and shitty. So, apologies in advance.
Yeah, this isn't a recap podcast, so we don't really have the general cadence down of when we should be recording recaps of everything, because we never do this. So,
no.
Apologies if this is outdated in a day.
But we wanted to talk about it because for the last month at least, we've been talking very explicitly about Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, the Bloodline, and really more than anything, how those stories have been told and intertwined and lasted over the years. And obviously those came to a head at WrestleMania 40 when Cody won the belt finally. So they played out exactly as we thought it would, Walt, exactly as most people thought it would. You know, it seems like one of those examples that we often discuss where, you know, you can do the same thing, the same storyline with no real twists or changes as it's been done before, but if you execute very well, it is successful. So I guess my start-off question to you, Walt, is seeing how this story has been told from basically start to finish, do you think it is one of those examples? Do you think it was ultimately executed successfully?
Man, that's such a complicated answer to a very simple question. But I would say that at the end of the day, I don't know, I was pretty satisfied. I started to fantasy book a little bit, and I'm like, no, don't. It's not your job to fantasy book. Don't stop fantasy booking. And I don't know about you, but I feel like with some of the surprise guests, by the time they started rolling in, I guess I never really thought of surprise cameos in the main and just being this third and final chapter of this Roman Cody story. Because then I started to start to think oh, well, this person would have been perfect for this role, or oh, they should have brought up this. It's in the moment, I wasn't thinking about any of that. I was just kind of sucked into this Avengers-esque level. I hate using that metaphor.
I know you're a lot of people are using that already, so it's not wrong, but it is it is a little common, for lack of a better term, already.
In front of the show, Chris Holcomb said it played out like an anime, and I'm like, I want to use that because it definitely did feel like that to some degree as well, super epic Dragon Ball Z, all the good guys and all the bad guys are fighting. It felt like that, and so I had no complaints as a result.
Yeah, I mean, I think the obvious fantasy book that we could throw in there is it would have been great if instead of Undertaker, it was Stone Cold Steve Austin. And that was my initial thought after the show, because I had figured that was going to happen, mostly because I used the online gambling site Bovada to place bets on WrestleMania, including on Awesome Truth, the new tag team champions. So I won a few bucks for that. Hooray. But
paid for 6 months of Lipson right there.
Yeah, that's right. But one of the bets they offered was basically who is going to be at WrestleMania. And Stone Cold Steve Austin was minus 250, I think, which if you know gambling, that means a sure thing. So no, don't even waste your time on that one. That's not, not even worth betting on. And I sort of took that to heart because that was sort of my idea as well. Is as Rock is going to be there, so I didn't know if it was going to be the smorgasbord of people we got, which was Cena and and Taker and Seth obviously and all that. But I figured Austin might show up at some point to do something relating to Rock, or even just to bang some beers together and say "Hooray WrestleMania!" So the fact that that didn't happen surprised me and made, just because I was so sort of locked into, surely that's a can't miss choice. But as you said, that it's sort of dumb to do that. Like, it would have been great, but I also would not deny that in the moment I was enjoying all the crazy shit that was going down. And for a epic moment that was both deserving of that title and very manufactured, I think no matter what dumb stuff they threw at you, it was all fun. It was like you sort of knew when it become no DQ that there would be hijinks of a high to a high level, and the fact that they paid it off with some real wacky ones that made everyone smile. How can you get mad at that? And then also obviously hashtag finish the story with Cody winning. Like, it was a very joyful sort of mix of everything.
Yeah. It's funny because, like, going into it, everyone's like, oh, my God, this is going to be such an overbooked, convoluted
because the night before
match.
was not good, because the tag match, I think, is objectively was not a very good match.
Right. But just like with everything else kind of leading up to last night's, night two's main event, it's like whether or not they intended for it, they kind of created more storylines as a result, because now with The Rock pinning Cody the night before, it almost kind of sets up a Rock Cody singles match now that I never really thought they were going in that direction ever. And so now it almost like, not to excuse the choices they made in the tag match in general, but the finish and the way it unfolded was like, okay, now I kind of want to see that match in some weird way. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like overthinking this.
No, I mean, I'm sure that's what they were going for, right? Like, even though, and to their credit, they didn't. One thing I think that was very successful was because a friend of the show, Matt Rice, was texting me as we were wrapping up, and Cody was celebrating, and it went on for a very long time. And he was like, something is going to happen here. Like, this is just taking too long. And I wrote back, and I was like, I don't think so. I think this is truly just letting everyone smile, like it's letting that moment really play out and everyone have their moment in the sun, like Cody and his family and a bunch of other good guys and all that stuff. Like, I think Triple H really just cleared the runway and was like, let's just let everyone be happy. But I think, but as you noted, they certainly put seeds in there of discord between Roman and Rock, and more perhaps importantly, building to a Cody Rock match down the line, which I'm sure is at least in the cards of possibilities, And my main point was, to their credit, they didn't immediately set that up after the show, like with Rock butting his head in and getting involved, which was the thing I think we've been talking about for the last month. Especially at the beginning of our little Road to WrestleMania series, we expressed a lot of trepidation, like, oh my God, Rock's inserting himself in this. Like, this has not gone well the last couple times this has happened. He's going to make himself the main character, the star of the show, cram himself down everyone's throats, and it's just going to be exhausting. And it was not any of that. And this was the last moment where, like, they had one more chance. Like, okay, we could just give you a little more Rock. And Rock has been doing so well lately. How about one more Rock moment? And instead, no, he left the ring, and Cody got to have his thing. And I think that is some more restraint, a final little bit of restraint that I really appreciate, is letting that finish the way it's supposed to. But like you said, still having plenty to do down the line, but recognizing that can happen down the line.
Yeah, and the tag was long.
44 minutes and 35 seconds.
Right.
The second longest match in WrestleMania history, besides the Iron Man match, which was obligated to take 1 hour plus.
Right. So it was long, and we all regret that. And we all, I think in the Triple H era, we have to remind Triple H, this was said, this isn't even a unique thought by me, but it's like, we have to remind this guy that long doesn't mean epic.
It really does not. It made me think so much of the Triple H Roman match from years ago, right? Like that, which felt 45 minutes long and was way worse than this. And and Triple H was not the boss then, but it felt like his influence was there. And like it's the one big issue I have with Triple H booking is these like, and certainly with Roman matches too, which is part and parcel of Triple H booking for the last couple of years, is they are just not. He's not the kind of guy for those matches, and there's not always a need for those matches. And like you said, it does not always turn out to be what they think it is.
Right, and I think in the case of the tag, it was way too long, and I think we all agree with that. There's really nothing else new or interesting to say about it. But at the same time, to go back to the point that you made earlier about it was enough Rock, and I think the tag scenario was more than enough Rock. It allowed him to accentuate in small moments his physicality while still being like a huge player in this major event, historical event. And I think like that's the one thing that like I still give them like the hall pass on, is the fact that yes, it was a long match, but it was the perfect amount of Rock even in that context. And so to me, I prefer that over The Rock doing what he did with Cena 10 years ago, which was like 18 minutes of just The Rock fight wrestling, which we know he can't even do. And that was 10 years ago.
It was a really, and the way you're putting it is very fair, and I think you are right in that sense, that we were going to get a big hunk of Rock whether we wanted it or not. We've known that for several months now. So it's sort of like pick your poison, like you said. Or do you want to sit through a Rock versus anybody match in 2024 that is going to go on for 20 plus minutes no matter what? Or do you want to get a little bit of Rock in another thing that is still bloated and a bit of a mess, but it does accentuate what Rock can do now at this age, at this stage in his life and career? And you're right. He's the star of that match. Like it was very well planned around him. You know, it showed off what he has left. It ignored the other stuff. It let him be a big, like, I really enjoyed the storyline beat of that match, which I was explaining to, I think, one of my other friends. Not a friend of the show yet, maybe someday, but so I won't say his name just yet until he's a friend of the show. But he was asking how night one went, and I said, well, you know, there was the tag match. It was super bloated and boring, but the fun thing is they're acknowledging The Rock is, you know, on the board of TKO and is like, you know, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, movie star and rich guy. And so the way they get around, you know, making the match 45 minutes long is saying Rock just tells the ref, like, get the fuck out of here. Like, don't do anything basically other than count pins for me. So that's a great conceit, you know, like that lets Rock be a huge asshole and explain why the match keeps going on. Obviously why there's no DQs and countouts, but like, it's just a good, Rock was definitely still leaning into the heel persona that we've all come to enjoy over the last couple weeks. So that's great too. Like when the spotlight shone on him and it was time for his big moments, he didn't go back to smiling and like I said, and H and the booking team didn't plant the kernels for the eventual Rock babyface turn that's certainly going to come in the next couple months or year. You know, like they let him be a big asshole still, and it worked very well.
Well, it's almost as if The Rock is assuming the authority figure role, which we all know is a WWE trope. The same way that guy plays guitar.
They're mandated to have one authority figure in the picture at every single moment, no matter what.
Yeah, but I will say though that with this whole with The Rock's role in all this and where I thought we were going and where we ended up going, like, I'm glad that he's still kind of bad and he's still, you know, like the final boss. Like he hasn't been conquered. He's still the final boss.
I mean, and you're right. And then, you know, and I made it sound like the Rock face turn is inevitability. They could just as easily, Roman could turn face, you know, like there's one of them will probably turn at some point because the other one will turn on them. But it certainly could be the other. Rock could be bad for a while now, and Roman could be the conquering hero who beats him.
Right, and that's the level of complexity that I appreciate in the fact that they kind of didn't give me what I thought we were going, which was like The Rock was gonna turn on Roman and be the reason why Cody won, and it was like, oh, this was like his like inside man from day one. Oh, I'm gonna usurp Roman by it's like, no, he's still in the bloodline, and it's like there's now a new direction for the bloodline. Does The Rock just assume the role now? Does Roman kick him out and say this is whatever? Like, like there's a lot of different ways we can go with this. So that's positive, because they could have just had The Rock end the reign through Cody, and then there's really no point.
Yeah, and then like you said, it's been either a trick for the last couple weeks, or in the heat of the moment, Rock decides I don't like Roman. Like it would have put the spotlight back on Rock at a moment when that's not the point of what they were going for. Like they clearly audibled away from that for various reasons, and I'm sure it was tempting to go back to that, but the one thing Triple H has been good at so far is long-term storytelling, and it would have been it's borderline stupid to do that too, because why not have that lead to a SummerSlam match or another Mania match? Like, why would you have that moment on this WrestleMania that we already bought and paid for, and it's over now, Like, literally the show is over. You're making no money out of that. If you make them still be wary friends for a few months, and also if they just go away, which I think both of them probably will. I mean, I would imagine that after we record this, something will happen on Raw that will send one or both of them off for a little while. I can't imagine they're going to be on TV throughout April. That doesn't seem like what either one really wants to do. But So in that case, why, save that for later? Like, save that for when there's more money to be made and there's more angles to happen. And that's good. Like, I appreciate that. That's something H really seems to place value in, is, okay, Mania's over. Now we build to SummerSlam. Then we build to Mania. Then we build, that's how it should be. That's good long-term thinking.
Well, these PLEs now all summer are like huge international locations, and then Cleveland. And so, like, those are reasons to build, like, not that I think they should be programming exclusively for like Saudi Arabia, but like they're going to need a big match for that too. Yeah. They need big matches for all these. And so now they've kind of helped set up a runway that gives them that, or they can go a different direction completely and then just hold off until next year's Mania or SummerSlam. And, either way, like, they have options. Whereas, like, typically after WrestleMania, it's like, oh, Daniel Bryan just is the conquering hero. Now he has 3 months of Kane. And it's like, well,
I think we bring that up on like every single episode now.
Literally every.
It was one of the most grievous errors in recent wrestling history. Meaning the last 10 years, but
yeah. But also too, and this is another thing I really wanted to talk about, was like the Seth Roman interaction at the end, which is effectively cost Roman the match, deciding to use the chair on Seth, which was the greatest piece of like poetic justice and like just long-term storytelling. Like, of all the things they did in that match last night, that decision was like something that I think is going to be analyzed for a long time.
Yeah. Well, I have not to be nitpicky cinema sins guy who's like, well, they really messed that up, but they did really botch that. Like the chair shot you're describing part and the psychological impact of that, like in the match, is great. But if you probably all were watching, I just can't help but revisit it because it made me laugh so much. So Shield music hits, and Roman's looking around like, what the heck is going on? And well, tell me if there was a second in my head where I was like, they're going to bring Moxley and Seth back. Did you think that was remotely possible?
Oh my God, yeah. But like I was saying, though, at that point, things were happening so quickly that I didn't even have time to like think about the next thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Moxley's
I thought maybe they'd be like, Tony Khan, can we have Moxley for like literally one night, and then he can go back.
Here's $1 million.
Yeah.
Like,
and literally we'll never like, we'll talk about it, but like we won't make a huge. He's not going to wrestle for us. Like, he's just going to come cost Roman, his former friend, But yeah. So anyway, seems like that might happen for a second. Then you sort of realize, okay, it takes a little while, and you're like, okay, maybe it's not actually going to be Moxley. Then Seth sort of sneaks in out of frame, which I can't tell if that was like a camera error or like if that was the plan, and then gets murked by Roman in like 1 second. Like comes in, does nothing, literally does nothing to help Cody at all, which is very funny. And maybe they're gonna go somewhere with that. Like Seth sacrifices himself, to ultimately, like you said, help Cody win by accident. It wasn't really the way he probably meant to do it, but he did draw Roman's attention away long enough to change the course of the match. But it just made me laugh that like all these Cena's come in and Taker comes in and like the Bloodlines come in. There's all this going on. Seth's in the ring for 2 seconds and gets the shit beat out of him. And then barely is on camera. It was that sort of a thing.
Yeah. I mean, I like that. I really did like that part because I really had no idea what they were doing and where they were going with it. Like everything else felt like you could follow the breadcrumbs, but like that part, I'm just like, I was completely like, I don't know what the next step is here, and then Seth getting completely like owned is like certainly not what I expected, but
it was a twist. It was a little bit of a twist.
Part of me was like, they really could have found a way to incorporate Sammy and Kevin Owens into this, but then they struck a good balance of like inviting enough outside people in to make it meaningful in a more holistic, like world building sense, without taking the focus away from Cody and Roman. And that's where Seth at the end being there. And it's like, I could either win this match against Cody or beat the shit out of Seth some more. It's like, I'm going to beat the shit out of Seth some more. And I kind of am excited to see a Seth Roman singles match again, because of like, now they have this pivotal moment to like play off of, which to me, for some reason, I guess I'm alone in this, was super interesting.
No, I think you're right. And like, I mean, as a longtime Seth kind of liker, not really liker, I really enjoy any angle where the idea is he makes an impact by getting his ass kicked and looking like a fool, but now he gets to hanging over Roman's head. Like, I cost you the belt, and Roman gets to be like, yeah, but I beat the shit out of you. Like, you didn't really do anything. You just sort of existed. Like, that to me is a very good use of Seth. Like, he's pesky and he's around and he's annoying. He isn't always gonna beat you. He isn't always gonna, out wrestle you, but he is never gonna go away and is always gonna be a fly in your ointment. I think that is a high quality use of Seth in my book.
This metaphor is literally for one person, friend of the show, Chris Holcomb, but I'm going to say it anyway. Seth's role in this match was like Vegeta in Dragon Ball Z. I guess it's for Chris Amino too. But, yeah. Where he just gets his ass kicked long enough for Goku, our actual hero, to come in and put together the pieces to win the fight.
Yes.
But like, there's something about that Vegeta role of just like he gets his like stool kicked in, like in the coolest, best possible way, which makes me really like that moment even more. So.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but when that would happen on Dragon Ball Z, it was usually part of the plan, right? He was like, I was just trying to stall you so Goku could do the spirit bomb or whatever. Like often that's the whole idea, right? Is I'll just buy time.
Sometimes Vegeta just is just a fool and just thinks he's better than he is, and then he just gets his stool kicked in because that's sadly what he's the best at. But same with Seth apparently. So,
yeah, well,
that's a great role. It's great. The Vegeta of the WWE universe, like the Dragon Ball universe. Well, it's a pretty good number 2.
Yeah, and we'll see if it's nice to have enough faith in the booking department and the storytelling that, like you said, maybe they will use that down the line. Maybe they will. I'm sure they will use it in some capacity. Maybe they'll use it in the way it happened on screen, like where Seth looked like a fool, but he still got the job done. Like if they incorporate that into this at some point, I'd be like A+, great job. Like I don't know if it was a botch or if it was the plan all along, but like when they take that and make it into something, it always makes me very happy. And like I said, they do that now way more than they used to. So
yeah. So, with regards to this Mania, speaking outside
of that we're not talking about.
Speaking outside of the main events, plural, which we can also talk about why there's multiple main events. But like, how do you feel overall with how this full WrestleMania weekend went?
I mean, it was entertaining for sure. Like, Was it too much wrestling? Probably. Even though they splitting up into 2 nights is brilliant, and it was a very good mix of matches across both nights, and most of it was very entertaining. Like, I didn't have a lot of beef with any of it. It's just so much. By 11 p.m. last night, I was very sleepy, and especially with a 8-month-old kid, I was just like, I don't stay up till 11 most nights. I mean, even if I do, I don't stay up, drinking wine and watching wrestling. I'm just laying in bed. Like, I'm preparing to sleep. I'm like, now I gotta climb my ass upstairs and brush my teeth and do all this. So, like, it's just a lot. It's a little bit of an overload, but I struggle to think about much that they could have done differently. Like, we could harp on the Usos match being bad, and it was very bad. But
we definitely could.
I think everything else accomplished what it meant to accomplish. Like the women's 6-man with Damage Control and Jade made Jade look good. The Rey Andrade thing, whatever, that's a 10 minutes. Rey beats Dom again because, I don't know, he's just always going to beat his son. The tag ladder match was big and silly. Like, there's just everything sort of worked. Like, the Priest cash-in was exciting. That whole opening was really, really great. Like, everything all worked for some. I guess maybe the Philly street fight didn't really work very well, but
yeah, it did not.
A lot. It was I would say it was very, very successful, and I appreciated the general vibe too, which was like Vince McMahon does not work here anymore. That was a very common unspoken thing. Is new era. Triple H. Like, we love Triple H. Like, it's the kind of thing that they said it a million times, but it still feels fairly legitimate and organic. Like, I believe that almost everybody there, in some way would rather work for Triple H than old Vince McMahon. Like, they may appreciate what Vince did for them decades ago, years ago, I guess even months ago, but I think I have to imagine it's a better work environment for almost everybody, and that is, they really hit that home, and I believe them when they say it.
I mean, if the Prime Energy drink logo didn't tell you that the Vince McMahon era is over.
Do you think Vince would never allow such a thing to be tarnish his ring?
No, isn't that? I believe that's like a common conceit of his, was like, that never touch the ring with sponsorship.
Sure, I believe it.
I mean, I at certain points, like, I know, like, you have this giant event, global event, monetize the shit out of it. Like, I'm all for that. Like, and Nick Khan's in the front row, and his stink is all over this with regards to sponsorship. And I don't mean that in like a bad way. I mean that, like, he's trying to maximize the profitability of this product, and WrestleMania is the biggest night of the year for them. I think the Slim Jims thing started to really take me in the wrong direction, where it was like the tipping point where I'm like, okay, all right, I get sponsorship and all that, but, like, you're driving the Slim Jims car for the Slim Jims match.
Giving some weird old lady the car, like,
to the Slim Jims fans in the Slim Jims section. I'm like, I don't want fucking meat sticks. Thank you for telling me. If I do, I'm going to Slim Jims and nothing else. And I get that. I understand how marketing works, but, like, it just was too much at some points. But
at least they give it to LA Knight, though, who's a guy I don't particularly care for. Though I get that people like him, but, like, it's if you give it there, I know I can look away for, again, 12 to 15 minutes and sort of just zone out during the LA Knight Slim Jim, because he was also in the Mountain Dew match with Bray, wasn't he? Like, he's all over these branded opportunities.
And something, there's something very valuable about that. Like, the Miz does all this branded shit because he's just like an ad friendly guy that they have. And when I worked in TV, there was certain talent that sponsors just seemed to flock to, and their shows sucked or didn't rate, but they were on the air because advertisers wanted to be tied to Samantha Brown, for example. I'm just throwing out very dated travel log talent from 15 years ago.
I was going to say, from 2011, probably.
My point, though, is, like, there's certainly roles for that, but I don't know. It felt like too much. But the one thing I'll say about this year's Mania, outside of the gratuitous monetization of every second, was this Mania outside of the main really did for me lack that resonating moment beyond this year's like stories. And I say that and we've talked about this before, but the triple threat match last year for the Intercontinental title was like one of the best, most novel, interesting wrestling matches I will ever see in my life. And I will never forget that those three had that match at that event. And there's several, and the Usos, Sammy, Kevin Owens was also a match that was like eclipsed the moment of like, wow, we're finishing a story at WrestleMania like we do every year. It's like this year, I feel like everything you just ran down, I miss outside of Cody Roman, which technically isn't even confined to this year. I'm missing that match that was like, oh man, like when I think of this year, I'm never going to forget about that one undercard match that really stole the show. Or it's like, that's the thing that I think was for me missing from this year's two nights.
Yeah, I would agree. Like in looking at the card, and talking about what we like the most beyond the main, like the main, which we both agree was very well executed for what it was. I guess the best match is Sammy beat Gunther, but Sammy's had the Intercontinental title before, at least once. I don't know how many times they've passed that around, but he's been an Intercontinental champion. And, he's had that moment with Roman, and he's been, near the top of the mountain. And I think, if you ask somebody who should beat Gunther, he would have been near the top of the list because everyone likes Sammy, and it's cool to see him get that moment. I don't think anyone is mad about that. But it's just we've had Sammy, like you said, last year Sammy had his moment, and it was a better moment. Like, it would have been nice if it was someone like Chad Gable, like what if it was someone who truly has never had that opportunity. Like the things we liked when Kofi had his Kofi Mania because Kofi had never done that before, and it truly felt novel and exciting to see someone like Kofi do something crazy like that. When it's and Chad Gable has never had that opportunity. Like just naming him as I know a guy who's been in that sort of area with Gunther and with Sammy, he's sort of involved in that story. It would have been a little more unique to have that. If they get 16, 17 good minutes, and he's the one who's coming back on Gunther, maybe that stands out as more of a special moment, Whereas Sammy doing it, you're like, yay, we like Sammy, but like good. Now he's had two Mania moments. Like good, he should have more someday. But it just does. It's calling that the best match is like, yeah, I mean that was like a 4-star match. Like that was great. It was very good. But I'm not gonna think about that in a month. It's gonna it'll retreat to the recesses of my mind as like a trivia or a brief little comment and thought on this night's show.
Yeah, and if anything, it's almost with regards to Gunther and Sammy, it's almost like more interesting where Gunther goes in the loss than where Sammy goes in the win. And to me, that's like, whereas like Gable winning, to your point, I think creates more of a, like, it lifts him to a new tier that now it's like, oh, where are they going to take this guy now? Where it's pretty painfully clear that Sammy, there's nowhere really else for Sammy to go other than like Bronson Reed times infinity.
Yeah, like it's more about him winning the Mania match than it is him having the IC title. Because now you're like, great, he has to defend the IC title. Like, okay, like that's why is that particularly special?
Right. But I will say too, like, and this is kind of relates to the main again, which I guess it's impossible not to. It's like the gravitational pull of the sun within WWE, but like, it is good that while they did end a few long-term reigns, they did kind of establish that Rhea Ripley's now the big dog's the wrong term for obvious reasons, but like she's now the longest reigning person. She's the tyrant of the WWE, where she's just like holding on to this belt for over a year. And I think that's good to always have one champion that's super strong, because we saw just like how special it was to create two concurrent champions of like more than a year, and like creating those moments at this event in this way is like super, like, it just made everything so much more important and interesting. So
yeah. And I will say, we critique AEW a lot, as most people do, for having too many belts. And that's certainly because the ROH belts get involved with AEW, and that just muddies the waters and it just is way, way too much. But I think WWE right now does a great job of having a bunch of belts, but delineating them pretty well. Like every belt has, like, even if they do sort of run together at some point, like what's the difference between the U.S. title and the IC title? There is none. But the difference is Gunther had the IC title, Logan Paul has the U.S. title, and they're doing their thing with it, And they use the belt to accentuate the character as opposed to just having it be a piece of jewelry, And that's great. And like you said, it's hard to do that when you're hot-shotting it back and forth. It's much easier when you commit to a long-term story with a guy or girl and let them hold it for a while. It becomes part of who they are, and it becomes, there's the challenge of how to take it away from them because it fuels them and it gives them juice and it makes them powerful. Like, it's good. It makes a lot of sense. It's another very simple story to tell, and they've just done it really well for the last year and change. And so, like you said, Rhea is great at that. And now we all get to wonder who's going to beat Rhea someday. And like, it's good to have that in the back of your mind when you're, at all times.
Right. I mean, you should always have something slow cooking in the background. Like, and maybe this is going to be this case with Cody. Maybe Cody doesn't lose it for a year, and now this reign is historic and wonderful, and but I do think that's important to establish long-term reigns like that, because they just lost two of their biggest in one night. So it's like, it seemed to work. It was a strategy that's been working, so let's not fix what ain't broken.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say right now, as you and I both make it very clear on the show that we do not watch the weekly programming of really either of any of the companies in any real way. Sure. But just watching this Mania and, and just the state of the company, like, it's just, to me, it's a very solid, like, B+, It's like, there's a lot of things work. The things that don't are easy to ignore. I'm not going to maybe look back at all of it as, any sort of in my opinion, any sort of golden era. Maybe it's just because I'm older and I just don't think of it that way. But it's all just like very well done, and I know at this point, whenever I bother to put on a pay-per-view, certainly a big one, or check in on what's going on, like, it's not the shit we used to say. Well, one of your famous lines is like, what the hell are they doing on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday nights? Like, what is this dog shit that is on my television that I flip by every now and then? I think we're at a point right now, even if there's too much TV still, whenever you consume WWE entertainment, you're like, this is all pretty fine, like, it's all, the ceiling is, the floor is very high. The ceiling might not be sky high, but it's pretty good. But the floor is higher than it's been in quite a while. And I think that's an accomplishment at this day and age with this kind of a roster and all this going on. To be consistent and entertaining is not easy to do. And I think they're pulling it off pretty well.
Yeah, and the fact that they can still do two nights of WrestleMania, and it was too much. It was too much, but at the same time, it's like, it was enough to justify two nights. Like, they could never go back to one night.
No, we would. Oh my! Literally, don't even talk about that.
but so that's and as long as I feel like they can't go back, the second I say they can go back to one night, why the hell did we drag this out for two? We have a problem. But we've been doing this for years, and like, it's only getting stronger, and they're building more long-term stories to make two nights of this justifiable from creatively. I mean, monetarily, as we know, as I mentioned earlier, we're probably trending towards 4 nights.
Yeah, they can sell 2 nights of tickets. Why not more?
Yeah, right. A month of WrestleMania every year. Like, but realistically, creatively, 2 nights actually still kind of works.
Yep, agreed. Well, as we're wrapping up here, there's one thing I want to talk about, and I don't want to ramble on it too much because we've been talking a lot here, but we didn't touch on it. I feel bad if we didn't bring it up. This Drew Mack heel character they're doing is so great. He's such a good heel. I didn't know if he had it in him, but like, just him, the whole thing with Punk, like, just him shitting on Punk is fantastic. Like, I have mixed feelings on CM Punk, and he's certainly very good at what he does in a lot of ways, but like, just, and I sort of hope he doesn't get, he's been obviously got his comeuppance on Drew at Mania, but I just really enjoy Drew shitting all over him. Like, it makes me very happy, and it's given Drew a lot to do and a way to really develop that character and become, I think, one of their top 3 or 4 guys now.
Another person who after WrestleMania, I'm like, where does this guy go, and what happens next, and
yeah, because he was
super
made to look a
interesting.
fool by a fellow heel is not usually the best plan for somebody, or doesn't usually mean sustainable success is around the corner. But he beat he beat Seth. I wish he had walked away clean. It was a great moment, but I was like, man, it would have been nice if they just let him beat Seth and taunt Punk and leave with the belt. I'd be like, that would have been great. He deserves that.
Yeah, but if not then, when the hell is?
Yeah, it was a shit, and it's good for
Damien's
Priest
gonna
too.
do
Priest
it,
looks like $1 million. So I mean, if they want to do something with him, now is the time. So
They kind of have to. He's
the world
old.
champion. He's the whatever the hell that belt is called.
Yeah,
it is
the
World
Raw
Champion.
Championship or whatever.
Yeah, would you say so? Overall, enjoyable show, right? Definitely worth the $5 of Peacock. That's also a thing. We've said it before, but paying the Peacock price as opposed to the pay-per-view price is just fantastic.
Yeah, the problem is that now we're paying $5 for every other month.
Well, that's a you and me problem. That's a documentary podcast content problem. So
yeah, it's a problem.
I will say, if you get an American Express card, Peacock, you get Peacock for free ultimately. So.
Oh, really?
You got to pay $250 a year or whatever we pay for our Amex card, but one of the perks is free Peacock. So,
wow, I didn't know that.
Yes,
Pays for itself.
Yeah, that's right. Just something to keep in mind.
Right.
Well,
Noted.
Hope you all enjoyed WrestleMania, and again, I hope you enjoyed our month plus of WrestleMania talking and chatter and docs and all that good stuff, because we are going to probably resume regularly scheduled programming in the near future, including Becky Lynch's book, Walt. I'm not saying it's our next episode, but it's out. Finally, a big wrestling book has emerged onto the scene, and we will definitely be covering it in the near future.
Yeah, I haven't thought of reading in a long time, so it's
we have not,
quite different.
We have not done a book, but it's nice that our namesake and our general idea still will ring true when we do cover that one. So
I hear this is a book club.
Yeah.
Or was it book club?
It's in the name, so it's got to be.
Yep.
Well, if you want to hear more, again, of our recent episodes, all about WrestleMania, the road to it, explicitly Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, The Rock, that whole gang, you can find our archives at awesometruth.libsyn.com. You can also subscribe to us for old episodes and new on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are delivered. Walt, great to go on this journey with you and talk about Mania. Looking forward to new episodes, looking forward to reading the book and putting WrestleMania in our rearview mirror. Maybe, probably, hopefully.
Until we cover the behind-the-scenes doc that they just have.
If it's good, we'll have to talk about it, right? We're going to watch it on the YouTube channel, and if it turns out to be, if there's nuggets in there, I guess we're going to have to talk about it. So,
I think we have to.
All right, well, we'll see. If you see it pop up, you know that WrestleMania has continued on this show. But for now, Thanks so much for listening, and remember, the truth will set you free.